Perfetto. Rosa, a te la parola.
Grazie mille. Grazie mille, Giuseppe. Well, first of all, grazie mille, è un onore essere qui, ma mi dispiace non parlare italiano. Non parli molto meglio l'inglese, but I will try in English. So first of all, I would like to thank the scientific committee, all of them, Chiara, Francesca, Antonella, and especially the professor Giuseppe Riva and all his team, to being so kind to invite me to address the keynote today, because for me it's really a great honor to be here. Thank you very much. Grazie mille. Well, the aim of my talk is to offer you a general view of how technologies can help us in the specific field of the promotion of well-being. Well, initially we might say that all technologies have contributed to improve our lives in some way. After all, ICTs, information communication technologies, are not more and not less than tools. I love the concept of tools. The use of tools has played a fundamental role in human progress. As Stanley Kubrick reminds us in this wonderful film 2001, we, the humans, began to dominate this planet when we discover that a bone can be an axe or a hammer. At that moment, as Kubrick graphically shown, we strengthen up on our 2 feet and dominate the world. Thanks to the use of the tools, we have been able to change the world. We have been able to develop cultures and progress. And we have been able to move other places in the planet. And we have been able to generate and share knowledge. Maybe this one is the first ICT, information communication technology, the printing press. The printing press changed the world of that time. A change that marked the end of the era and the beginning of the new one. And as some authors say, is happening just now. And the computer technologies are the latest tools that humans have developed. These tools have great benefits, but also great risks and problems. There is a heavily ingrained image in our contemporary culture that new technologies can have a negative impact on human relations and bring us closer to dehumanization. Of course, technologies have their dark side. But today, I am going to focus my talk only on their potentialities, which doesn't mean we shouldn't be cautious and aware of these problems. Last year, The Lancet published a seminal paper about the challenges for psychological treatments in the century. In that work, the Commission stated that now is an exciting time to full treatment research, and they delimited 10 areas in which there is substantial opportunity for advancements that will move psychological treatment research forward. And the 5th area is technology. Authors said that the use of information communication technologies marks a new era for psychological assessment and treatments, and they include ICTs such as the internet, virtual reality, serious gaming, and mobile and wireless applications. The purpose of my talk today is to show how ICTs can help us in the specific field of promoting well-being for all people. In the last year, some applications have been developed specifically to study and promote well-being and happiness. We have recently referred to these technologies as positive technologies, and we have defined it as the scientific and applied approach to the use of technologies for understanding, enhancing, and training people's strengths and virtues, and this way promote the positive functioning and improving the quality of the personal experiences. Other authors have proposed other names in a similar line, as for instance, Rafael Calvo in Australia, he named that as positive computing. but all agree in one thing. If we want technologies to have a positive impact on people's life, we need to specifically design it for it. It's not only to recognize the positive effects that technologies may have on improving quality of life. It's to design specific systems and devices with a specific purpose of promoting the psychological growing. That is to foster positive emotions, to foster engagement and self-empowerment, and to promote social integration and connectedness. When talking about positive technologies, we can organize the field in several ways. For instance, considering their specific objective in the promotion of well-being, in the previous papers, we have divided positive ICTs in 3 broad categories. First, the hedonic technologies. Tools aim to offer transient pleasure and positive emotion, that is, tools to feel good. For instance, we have developed several virtual reality softwares to induce and train positive emotions as joy and relax, with very positive results in different samples. Second, the eudaimonic technologies, tools to promote self-empowerment, self-realization, to promote strength and resilience, that is, tools to do good. For instance, we have developed an interventions called CORE that help university students to identify and promote personal strengths and to increase resilience. And finally, the social and interpersonal technologies, tools to promote social integration and connectedness, to facilitate and promote a community life. For instance, one of the objectives of our system named Butler was to create a supported network among elderly people. Today, I prefer to organize the field in function of the specific technology, and I would like to resume the contribution of 3 particular ICTs: virtual reality, the internet, and mobile phones and sensors. Other fields, such as robotics, are starting to generate a lot of research, but it is not possible to do a comprehensive overview of all technological innovations. And I am going to focus on those that have been showing their effectiveness for some years now. Well, let's start with virtual reality. I think this technology is really amazing. It offers us the possibility of creating other worlds, synthetic worlds, which can substitute or complement the real world. Just like physical reality, virtual reality is also a mediated reality. In the same way as for accessing physical reality, we need the apparatus of knowing the world, as Konrad Lorenz said, which are our eyes or our ears or our nose. We need also some devices to access a world that only exists in the memory of the computer. These devices are our glasses or our headphones or our sensors. When we talk about virtual reality, we also include augmented reality. As Mingran and Casino remind us, there is a reality-virtuality continuum to describe all the possible contributions of real and virtual objects. Early developments of what is now begin in the virtual reality is now virtual reality began in the 15th and 16th with several key innovations. In 1965, Ivan Sutherland employed the first computer-generated interface, and he described the experience in a very interesting way. He said, don't think of that thing as a screen. Think of it as a window through which one looks into virtual world. The challenge to computer graphics is to make that virtual world look real, sound real, move and respond to interaction in real time, and even feel real. It's like the feeling of the first spectators of the film of the Lumière brothers at the end of the 19th century. They were sitting in the Grand Café in Paris when the image of a train came up slowly, and spectators panicked and ran away. And it was just a silent 50 seconds film. Or this little baby, amazed and excited with those magic glasses. That is what is named as reality judgment and sense of presence, a key component of the virtual reality experience. Because the target is that the user feels of being in a place which only exists in the memory of the computer, and that the user thinks that it is real. And this is achieved by two I's, immersion and interaction. You are immersed in other reality, and you can interact with it. This allows to cross to the other side of the mirror, to another reality, like Alice in the Wonderland, or like Cecilia, the main character of the film The Purple Rose of Cairo, Woody Allen. Unlike the cinema, where we can get inside a movie, in VR experience, we are not only the observers of the film, we are the protagonists. We are the agents of the experience. We are Alice and Cecilia, and this makes a great difference. These characteristics facilitate tremendously the possibilities of learning. What we learn in virtual reality, we will easily generalize to reality. We can learn to face our fears. We can learn new and healthier skills, and we can train emotions. The possibilities are many, and the impact of this learning in our well-being can be very positive. The idea of using VR to treat psychological disorders was first conceived at Clark Atlanta University, and in 1994, Max North published their first paper. The second study was conducted by Barbara Rothbaum for treating acrophobia. And in 1998, our group published the first study using VR for the treatment of claustrophobia. This is the first European project granted to virtual reality applications for psychological treatment. It was in 2000. It was named VEPSI project, and was led by Professor Giuseppe Riva. Well, in these 2 decades, the use of VR in the clinical psychology has grown exponentially. Initially, most studies were focused on phobias and anxiety disorder. But currently, there are a significant number of systematic reviews and even meta-analyses that show the efficacy of this technology in a wide range of mental disorders, such as PTSD, eating disorders, OCD, pain management, and even psychosis. And our research groups and the group of the Professor Riva significantly contributed developing systems for the treatment of different phobias, panic disorder, PTSD, eating disorders, pain, and aloneness, etc. We also developed in 2005 the first augmented reality system to treat phobias, in this case cockroach phobias. But virtual reality can have also other utilities in the clinical field, and not just for exposure. For instance, our group has been also pioneer in the use of VR to study and train positive emotions. We have demonstrated that it's possible to induce and train different emotions using VR. And we have tested their efficacy in several populations, such as elderly adults, people with depressive symptoms, oncological patients, fibromyalgia, and so on. We have also used VR to train and to promote individual strengths. We have developed and tested some systems like Emma or Earth using VR to empower people and help them to grow and have a meaningful life. We have tested in different populations, for instance, for isolated astronauts in a possible trip to Mars, in the Mars 500 project, or also for people with depressive system, with elderly people, oncological patients, and normal population. In conclusion, VR have many advantages, and VR can be a safe, controllable, personalized environment where the person can learn new experiences. But today, VR allows us to go even further. Today, most VR applications can be used to simulate external reality. But as Slater says, VR has typically been used for the illusory transformation of location, to place a person in a different world. But VR can also transform the self. VR has an additional power: change the self and not just the place. VR allows us to experience and explore ourselves in different bodies, doing different things. Through avatars, we can be others and do things we've never done. In this sense, VR can be also considered an embodied technology. The use of VR as embodied technology has many advantages. It allows to alter the bounds of the body. It allows to study the relationships among our body, cognitions, and emotions, and even to study relevant psychological mechanisms in different conditions, as, for example, eating disorders, as Professor Riva and our group are doing. But also, it allows to amplify the modeling learning, allow us to learn more adaptive behaviors. For instance, some recent studies have proved how changing the perspective and living experiences from the other bodies can help us to promote empathy and even compassion and self-compassion. Here there are the fascinating studies of Jeremy Belson during the last decade. His lab at Stanford University has been studying how VR can make us better people. Through VR, volunteers had felt what it is like to be Superman, and the researchers could evidence that it makes participants more helpful. Or participants had felt also as a cow, and researchers could evidence that this reduced meat consumptions. Or participants had felt even as a coral, and they learned about ocean acidification. At this moment, Belson and his group are testing several VR interventions that teach empathy, varying scenarios, and motivational factors. Here it is also the interesting and amazing work of the Mel Slater in Barcelona, promoting compassion and self-compassion through full body illusions with virtual bodies. In one of their last works published in Nature, they have developed a VR system to improve empathy in domestic abusers. And also the work of Machine to Be Another Lab, a Brazilian group which we are collaborating with, and they have developing a setup to interchange bodies to offer users an immersive experience of seeing themselves in the body of another person. At this moment, we are carrying out several studies with this setup, with this system, inducing illusions of swapping bodies to promote empathy and compassion in several contexts. For instance, at this moment, we are conducting a study to promote and train compassion in health professionals. And when we look to the future of VR, we find another fascinating potential, which is just beginning to develop, its power to connect people and experiences. That means VR could be considered also as a connectivity technology. Technician developers and industry said that one of the most exciting areas of expansion of VR is not just to become more and more realistic, but to become more and more social. It is not only to share experience with others, it's about experiences, digitally new experience with others. This is the bet of big companies like Facebook or Microsoft. This picture, for instance, was taken in a conference in Barcelona in 2016, and perhaps the picture could be taken in one of the next editions of the Positive Psychology Conference. In conclusion, VR can help us to live experiences with the potential to transform ourselves in a deep and a controlled way. With the team with Giuseppe Riva and Andrea Gaglioli, we are working on the conceptual framework named Transformative Experience Design for exploring how immersive and interactive technologies can be used to support long-lasting changes in the self, forcing individuals to critically examine and eventually revise their core assumptions and beliefs. VR is a rapidly, quickly emerging field of research. With Oculus, HTC, Sony, and a wide range of cheaper smartphone alternatives on the market now, a new chapter of research is about to begin. Oculus chief scientist Michael Agras has suggested that in the next 5 years, we will see a new generation of VR products, and the current headsets will seem like something out of the prehistory. Revolutionary is an overused word, but VR and mental health care, it may be actually to be justified over the coming years. VR could help us in making the best psychological interventions available to many more people. And it could potentially generate the kind of results that even a course of a standard psychological interventions treatment could not produce. Well, now let's talk some news about other technology, which in a pretty short period of time has incredibly changed most of our ordinary behaviors and way of living, the internet. In the specific area of health, the internet has meant a transformation of practice and care. At this moment, internet has promoted what is known as digital health or e-health or m-health, a broad term that involves the application of ICTs at virtually all levels: management, prevention, diagnosis, treatment, monitoring. In 2001, Eisenbach defined e-health and said, the term characterizes not only a technical development, but also a state of mind, a way of thinking, an attitude, and a commitment for networked global thinking to improve healthcare locally, regionally, and worldwide by using ICTs. According to this definition, the E in the e-health doesn't not only stand for electronic, but implies a number of other E's: efficiency, enhancing quality of care, evidence-based treatments, empowerment of consumers and patients, encouragement of new relationships between individuals and health professionals, education of physicians and consumers, enabling information exchange and communication, extending the scope of healthcare beyond the conventional boundaries, ethics, and equity. But in addition to these 10 essential E's, e-health should be also easy to use, entertaining, and also, why not, exciting. In the well-being field, internet has proven to be a very useful channel to deliver programs of promotion, prevention, and treatment. It just began in 2000. In that year, 3 pioneer works were published. In one of them, Alfred Lanz proposed to treat PTSD and grief using internet to send and collect patient information. In the same year, Gerhard Anderson published the first controlled trial for the treatment of headache using the internet. And the following year, together with Per Calvin, they published the first controlled trial of a cell program for the treatment of panic disorder via internet. And also in 2000, our group published a program for treating the fear of public speaking. We proposed a totally self-applied treatment mixing different technologies: videos, virtual reality, and internet. From 2000, the field has expanded impressively. Today, there is an ample evidence showing that the internet is an effective tool to deliver programs of promotion of well-being and prevention and treatment of many psychological problems. And a proof of this is the excellent review by Professor Anderson published in Psychological Bulletin. We have now more than 200 controlled trials on internet intervention for an incredible range of disorders and conditions, and probably more than 300 if unpublished work is included. At this time, we have not only meta-analysis, but we have also individual participant data meta-analysis demonstrated that internet interventions produce encouraging effects. There is even a specific association, the International Society for Research of Internet Intervention, and her daughter, the European Society, that he is celebrating the next conference in Copenhagen in September. All of you are invited. And there are also several projects, European projects, specifically focused on developing interventions through the internet, such as Help for Mood or Mastermind. For instance, in the European project named Optimi, our group developed and tested a system named Smiling is Fine, Sonreír es Divertido, which offers a fully self-administered program for preventing depression, promoting positive affect, and empowering users. At this moment, for instance, we are working in the eye care project, led by Corina Jacobi. And its general objective is to establish a comprehensive model of promoting mental health in Europe. Eye care is aimed to improve existing healthcare models, open new access paths, and overcome traditional and implementational barriers. The online platform includes evidence-based risk detection, disease prevention, and treatment facilitation for common mental disorders or for common psychological problems. Currently, we can say that internet-based treatments can be as effective as face-to-face treatments, and they have many advantages. For instance, saving time, reducing waiting lists, reducing the stigma of going to the therapist, might reach patients we cannot be reached with more traditional forms of treatment, can be also quite easily adapted to specific groups and persons and people, and they're probably more cost-effective than face-to-face treatments. However, internet intervention also have limitations. I'm just going to highlight a few. Dropout rates are higher. It's needed to work to improve this issue. Little research has focused on the long terms of internet interventions, or disseminations depend on the attitudes of users and healthcare professionals, and usually or not always, healthcare professionals have a positive attitude towards technologies. And the quality of the interventions that are offered through the internet is not always clear, and the possibility that low-quality therapies are being offered remains a threat. Well, very related to the internet is the impressive growth of mobile phones. Currently, the smartphones are very smart technologies, created by billions of people every day. Our mobiles are always with us. We use them all the time. They are like all-in-one lifestyle technology, a sort of electronic Swiss Army knife. For sure, the next future, the technology that we'll use for delivering mental health care is mobiles. The possibilities and opportunities that mobiles present for psychology in general and mental health in particular are immense. For instance, in 2011, Geoffrey Miller wrote, "Smartphones are not just new communication technologies. They are an occasion to rethink what psychology could be." And Thomas Insel, in a recent paper in JAMA, said, "Even though smartphone technology promises to transform many aspects of healthcare, no area of medicine is likely to be changed more by this technology than psychiatry. Combining digital phenotyping with online psychosocial interventions could potentially transform global mental care." I would like to emphasize two mobile applications, EMAS and EMIS. EMA means ecological momentary assessment. EMA are not a different way of filling questionnaires of self-report. EMA are completely new and different way of assessment. Through EMA, we can gather precise, objective, sustaining, and ecological valid data on the real-world behaviors and experiences where the people is. And they are not only useful for the individual assessment, but from this data, we can build models of individual and aggregated human behavior that are relevant for mental health conditions and for pursuing well-being. Today, there are a lot of examples of the use of EMMAs. I recommend you this review by Kaplan and Stone. EMMA is helping us to move the window of observation from the laboratory or clinic into people's homes and lives. But mobiles can also move the window of intervention into a new context. EMIs refer to psychological intervention provided by mobiles that are delivered while we are engaged in our typical routines in our everyday life. EMIs can take many forms. They can be unstructured clinical recommendations, or they can be more formalized and structured interventions. EMI can supplement existing intervention or could be implemented on their own. These integrative EMAs share many characteristics with just-in-time adaptive interventions, in that they work in deploy the right intervention at the right time for the particular person. One great example of this interactive intervention is the IntelliCare platform developed by David Moore and his group. The platform provides a suite of 14 mobile apps for depression and anxiety, each of which address a specific behavioral strategy. Users can select apps that they want to use. EMMAs and EMIs are going to help us to increase intervention, personalization, and sophistication, and also to be more effective, engaging, responsive, and adaptable to different people in different contexts. But to achieve this, they need to be leveraged by digital sensors. Only with our phones, it is possible to measure our location, movement, communication, and social interaction, light, sound, digital devices in the area, and even more. We can use the sensors included in our smartphones, but we can also use wearable devices. There are sensors-enabled technologies designed to be worn for a specific purpose, most commonly health and fitness. The goal of applying personal sensing is to convert the large amount of new sensor data into meaningful information relating to behavior, thoughts, emotion, and so on. Several terms have been used to describe the utilization of sensor data to estimate behavior, such as reality mining, personal informatics, digital phenotyping, or personal sensing. Recently, David Moore and his colleagues published a critical review of personal sensing research related to mental health, focused principally on smartphones, but also including studies on wearables, social media, and computers. In this review, they conclude that today it's feasible to obtain data from personal sensing using everyday sensors. Although personal sensing is still in its infancy, it holds great promise as a method for conducting mental health research and as a clinical tool for monitoring at-risk population and providing the foundation for the next generation of technology-based intervention. Well, this is the situation so far of the positive technology. Very recently, we launched a research topic in the journal Frontiers in Psychology with the title Positive Technology, Designing E-Experiences for Positive Change. And it was an initiative led by Professor Andrea Caglioli with the collaboration of Daniela Villani, Silvia Serino, and my colleague and friend Cristina Botella. 20 interesting papers have been selected and published, and at this moment, the editorial is closing the special issue and is going to be published in the next days. This special issue provides an overview about the state of the art of research in technology for mental well-being. The diversity of frameworks, application areas, intervention protocols, and technology-based solutions indicate that this emerging field offers exciting new avenues for research and innovations. We believe that positive technology represents not only a scientific, but also a cultural opportunity to promote a more human-centered view of the development of the digital future. But to achieve this, we have some challenge to accomplish. Well, what does the future offer us? It is impossible to foresee, especially in a field that is progressing as fast as this one. But I am going to have the courage to mention some lines that I believe will be developed in the near future. The first has to do with blending and mixing technologies. We need to mix VR, internet, mobile, sensors, but not only. Also social networks, serious games, gamification, and all persuasive technologies, including the emerging ones such as robotics. Other important challenge we will have to face is the volume of information that technologies will produce. Perhaps this is one of the biggest challenges. Simply stated, we don't know what to do with it. Instead of hundreds of data points, we will have millions or perhaps billions of data points to analyze. Most of us, including me, have been training to use statistical inference techniques designed in the 30s. We need newer approaches to confront the mountains of information that will soon be available. This data offers incredible opportunities, but we have to be very attentive to their possible and intended consequences. We need to open the machine learning black box. The system and the algorithms could be so complicated that even the engineers who design it may struggle to know the reason for any single action. We've never before built machines that operate in ways their creators don't understand. How well can we expect to communicate and get along with intelligent machines that could be unpredictable and inscrutable? Other problem is the quality of data. In the process of selecting a data set, creating an appropriate predictive model, and evaluating and refining the model, there is nothing more critical than the data. We must remind that bad data can be amplified into worse models. And that leads us to the next challenge, to continue to produce quality research. We need more and better scientific and rigorous studies. And we need also more implementation studies. Other relevant challenge is develop a truly interdisciplinary science in which the development of new technological application is informed by the best evidence-based behavioral science. Other problem is that in the long term, technologies tools can lead to the related phenomenon of de-skilling the professionals. That is, the reduction of the level of skill required to complete a task when some of all components of the task are partly automated. We need to train future professionals. In a recent paper in JAMA, Nokomovich and Sama proposed a new medical specialty, the medical virtualist. They use this term to describe physicians who will spend the majority of all their time caring for patients using a virtual medium. I think the same applies to psychiatrists and psychologists. We need to think about how to train future professionals who will spend a large part of their time and most tasks using technology. And all this bearing in mind that our field has an odd problem. Our target is mobile. One of the most challenging issues is that technologies are themselves a moving target. New applications are rarely on the market more than 1 or 2 years before they are replaced with more advanced approaches. As a result, virtually all the technologies being evaluated are obsolete by the time the evaluation is completed. And in addition of validation and testing is not enough, that we have to adapt them to different cultures. And that doesn't just mean translating the test into another languages. It involves everything, absolutely everything, even the colors we use in our programs, which can have different meanings in different cultures. And we need also ways to regulate the use of technologies. Health technologies are likely to be misused. For example, there are some applications that simply don't do what they are supposed to do, and they have not been systematically evaluated. Well, let me finish reading these sentences. Between the laboratory and the clinic lies almost the entire natural environment of humanity, practically untouched and unexplored by direct scientific procedures. Yet electronic devices exist, but which the scientists could not only record but modify the day-to-day behavior of his subjects or patients. These electronic devices may be used for constructive as well as destructive purpose, and their potential usefulness in understanding and solving human problems should not be neglected. These sentences were written in an abstract of a paper published in the early 1964 by Swiss-Gebel and colleagues. They developed a system to follow a behavior of prisoners on parole as a way to give them greater freedom of movement and well-being. Since then, the technology has helped us and much in the way of improving the lay people, but we need more collective, international, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary efforts. Well, after reviewing the possibilities of these technologies, we can conclude that positive technologies have the potential to be a revolution in mental health and well-being. But we have to be prepared to encounter many problems. Obviously, we have the obligation to be cautious and responsible. As David Carr reminds us, it's easy to get excited about technology. We frequently assume that technological progress will inherently improve our lives and increase our happiness. But there's no evidence that the digital technologies or the experiences they engender are making us a wiser or happier society. In fact, some have highlighted the negative impacts that new technologies can have on minds and society. David Carr said that he is not very optimistic. He said, we have an important choice for the future. Do we demand the technologies we use to challenge us and improve us, to expand and broaden what we do? Or do we become increasingly passive creatures we merely let computers do all, entertain us and distract us? I am more optimistic than David Carr, without touching the pathological optimism, I hope. It has been said that new directions in science are launched by new tools much more often than new concepts. I don't know, but I know that this work is in progress and the future is in our hands. Well, I would not want to end my talk without thank you all members of my research team. And of course, thank you. Grazie mille.
Grazie Rosa per questa presentazione. Abbiamo una decina di minuti se vogliamo fare delle domande a Rosa. Penso che la sua presentazione ci abbia dato tanti stimoli, per cui se dal pubblico avete una domanda per iniziare a rompere il ghiaccio, prego.
I think, as I said, that we must be very cautious. I think this is a progress that it is there and it is not possible to avoid it. We have to face with it. And I think that this kind of new ways of analyzing data and give us information will improve a lot. Will improve really in a dramatically way the way of doing psychology. In all levels, in researchers, for instance, it will help us in doing more complex models in order to explain and predict human experience, for instance. No? At the moment, we only take into account 2, 3, 4 variables in a very static model of interaction between human and context. And with all this information, we can have many, many opportunities to know the flexible and dynamic relationships between many variables, even climate, even everything, everything. But, of course, it will be very interested in order to offer us a deeper understanding of human experience. But the question is that, as I said, all depends of the data, it's a machine at the end, no? It depends at the moment, it depends of the data you put inside. If you put bad data, the outcome will be not very good. So we need to be very cautious first in order to know how the data to enter in, because not all that are relevant. And second, after the data is inside, the problem with algorithms is that they learn. And that's good. It's machines that learning to learn, and that's very good. But the question is, in some point, maybe we don't have control over that. So we have to be very cautious on that. And at this moment, for instance, even we have been writing, we are applying at this moment for a European project for mental care and well-being in the workplaces. And we were thinking about to implement this kind of new algorithms. But for instance, we introduce always the experts monitoring and supervising all the process. Because if not, at this moment we have even very important ethical restraints regarding who is responsible of the care that that we have at this moment a lot of challenges to solve before to implement this kind of solution. But for sure, the future will be in this line, for sure.
Any other question to Rosa? Domande?
O nel caffè.
No, Antonella.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But that's because I said before, our challenge at this moment is to collect information, of course, with the consent always of the people, but to collect it in a less unintrusive way. Because all of us like when our mobile, for instance, help us in something for coming here, no? But sometimes, if the mobile is asking me, is doing questions very repetitively at the end of the day, or they are saying me things all the day, at the end, I don't like it. You have to find also the right moments, the right questions, the right information in the way that always must be how do you say that? In the moment I want it. Not in the moment the machine wanted, but in the moment the user wanted. And we have to find this balance. That's very important in order to do not only more friendly, but also more acceptable for the people.
I was thinking about people with mental health problems who are not so aware and who are more vulnerable.
Yes, we have, that's one of the most important challenges we have at this moment in using technology. That is all these ethical questions and boundaries. And we have that because I talk about to work with engineers and computer informatics, but not only. We need also ethical professionals and lawyers and philosophers and sociologists working with us, because all these things sometimes it's very, the line between privacy and your rights are, and the line usually is very, very, very subtle. No? And we need to be cautious. The problem is that technologies go faster than our regulations. And that's the problem just now. That's because we need the experts and scientists and sociologists and everything put together in order to think how it's going to be the future on that. But for sure, you are completely right.
Any other comment, questions? We have just 3 minutes. I have a final question for Rosa. I think that after your speech, a lot of the audience may be interested about the use of technology, but typically it's not easy for psychologists entering this field. So the problem is nice, but in your vision, how we can reduce this distance between psychology and the use of technology? We have to improve training, we have to improve
the training, I think that, because there is also a mistake, for instance, when people, one example with virtual reality, no? For instance, when people use virtual reality, we think that, well, I put the virtual reality, it's the only thing I have to do. But it's not true. You have to be trained to use that, because it's a tool. So you have to be trained to like the way of using this tool. And the tools can be used, how do you say, rightly or wrongly. You can be in the right way or the wrong way. It's like every tool. So we need to improve the training. That's because, for instance, just this year, we are starting a postgraduate course specifically focused on the University of Valencia, specifically focused on ICTs, using mobiles, internet, VR, sensors, and all the other technology. Because everything in therapy is changing, even the relationship between psychologists and patients. All these things are changing. And also, even, for instance, there are many mistakes. I don't know here, but in Spain, for instance, many psychotherapists use Skype, things that, well, this is a very easy way of communicating with my patient. But this is completely forbidden. The regulations forbid to use Skype or using another media if it's not protected with all the regulation rules. And then even practical things that people don't know. So we have to include it. We have to include it not only in postgraduate courses, but also in graduate courses. And I think that that's very important. And another thing that's very important is to disseminate that the tools, that the technologies are our allies, are not our enemies. In fact, they are not going to substitute us. They are going to help us in doing our work much better. That's the point. And I think that we have also to do work breaking these negative attitudes towards technologies.
Thank you, Rosa. A questo punto siamo pronti per il coffee break. Vi ricordo che poi iniziano le sessioni parallele, per cui avremo 3 diverse location che sono comunque qua in zona. Ricordo anche a tutti la possibilità di iscriversi ancora all'aperitivo sociale che abbiamo subito dopo la giornata di oggi qui in zona, quindi se non vi siete ancora iscritti e volete vedere l'aperitivo milanese avrete la possibilità comunque di farlo anche più tardi. Grazie a tutti e buon coffee break.